Chapter 5. The next morning, Emma sat at the kitchen island with a mug between her palms, trying to make sense of her new reality. She'd slept that last 2 nights at the Reed's estate. She'd actually full-on slept. A deep, body-rejuvenating sleep where she did not have to worry about anyone getting to her. The relief made her want to cry and pace at the same time. Marta put 2 slices of toast in front of her. Emma thanked her. Later in the war room, Jasper stood braced over the table. Rafe leaned on the back of a chair, with Emma and Jenny sharing a couch on the other side of the room. Bea hunched at her laptop with a pen tucked into a messy bun, hair today, a deep violet color. When does this woman have the time to change her hair color? Emma wondered. Theo scrolled through text threads. Aiden entered last, sharp in a charcoal suite, tie loosened 1/2 inch. He glanced at Emma for a second and turned to the wall where Bea had projected an image. This was the image of the man who had whispered in her ears, last night, Arlo. Cameras in the alley and the curb had caught him twice. He was in his early 30s, lean build. Name confirmed? Jasper asked. Arlo Dane, Bea said, tapping keys. 2 misdemeanors out of Pine Ridge, 1 bar fight, 1 for obstruction of justice. No steady job on paper. Spending habits consistent with 1 running drugs on the side, or at least something illegal. He pays cash at a gym called Steel and Stone, lives above a vape shop on Ralston, and has a habit of frequently messaging a contact saved as T, likely Thomas Voss. He also has a soft spot for a bartender named Rhea who started at Blue Door last week. Soft spot, huh? Jenny echoed. Money transfers, Bea continued. Small amounts, frequent. He thinks he's subtle.
Theo slid a grainy still to the central screen. A young woman at the edge of a bar frame, hair in a messy ponytail, dark eyes scanning the floor behind the counter like she was counting exits while counting change. Rhea. Word from the bouncer's cousin, Theo said. Rhea takes the late shift to close. A man waits by the dumpster most nights, smoking, expecting company. The bouncer's cousin identified the man as Arlo. Last night he told her she owed him for the job. She told him to choke. Love her already, Jenny said. Arlo's our lead now, Aiden said, voice flat with purpose. He thinks he is middle management, but I think he'll run when pushed or brag when cornered. Either gives us something. We catch him where he feels in charge. By the dumpsters, Rafe laughed. That seems to be his favorite spot. The team put together a plan. They needed to find out what Voss wanted with Emma and why Arlo was stalking her. Was she wanted by 2 groups of people or just 1 man? Theo would plant 2 beacons on the alley wall mid-afternoon under the guise of a pest control tech doing an inspection. Rafe would take the east corner of the building's roof, while Jasper would sit in a gray sedan 2 blocks down to block the tail if Arlo tried to run a car. What about me? Emma asked. You can come along, Aiden answered. I don't want to risk leaving you alone in the house, but you have to follow my instructions. He let the words sink in. Not soft, not sharp. Emma stared at Arlo's frozen face. Men like him thrived on their proximity to power. Fine, she said. I will do as you have said. Aiden held her gaze for a brief moment. God, he was insane to be putting her in the line of fire, but he couldn't just leave her at home. He would offer to fly her to some city where she'd be safe. But he knew Emma. She wasn't going to leave her students at her self-defense class stranded. He wished he had another option. Rhea, Emma spoke, looking at the image of the lady on the second screen. We protect her first. If she wants out, we help. That's fine, Jasper answered. With their plans finalized, they left the house for the lounge later that evening. The street behind Blue Door was a narrow chute of cracked asphalt. It smelled of rotten fish and stale cigarettes. It was time for Theo's pest inspection. He planted the bugs inside their cracks in the bricks closest to the dumpsters. Rafe took the roof opposite and lay flat, hiding in the shadow. Binoculars pressed his eyes and comms in his ears. Jasper's sedan settled into a secluded spot a bit away from the lounge. Emma and Jenny waited in a coffee shop down the road. With her back to the wall, Emma watched the entrance through a smeared window. Why are we always in alleys? Jenny asked, eyes never leaving the glass. I wonder why too. I'm just ready for all this to come to end, Emma replied. At 6:02 p.m., a door at the far end of the alley opened, and Rhea stepped out carrying a bag of trash, shoulders stiff, eyes glancing around. Arlo appeared out of the shadows, cigarette unlit between his fingers. "Visual," Rafe murmured, emotionless. "I have our guy in sight. Secondary target, present." "B?" Jasper asked. "I can't see Voss's man anywhere around," B said, voice low. "Voss seems to be absent too." Aiden's car rolled slowly into the alley. He didn't step out yet. He let the night fill in around him and listened. He watched the two targets in the alley. Arlo reached for Rhea's wrist. She jerked back. The bag hit the ground with a thud and a wet sound. Arlo leaned in, words low and sharp. Rhea said something back that made his mouth thin. He grabbed for her again. "Why is he grabbing her?" Emma said into the mic, voice steady, but with some trace of concern. Jasper moved first, stepping out from behind the dumpster. Rafe came down from the roof in a smooth drop. Aiden slid out of the car, the epitome of calmness. "Evening," Jasper said to Arlo, as if they were about to discuss delivery schedules. "You, Arlo?" Arlo stiffened, hand flexing. "Who?" "Friends of Rhea," Rafe said mildly from behind Arlo. "Who the hell are you?" Arlo demanded, and tried to pull Rhea toward the wall. Emma walked into the alley. Slow, visible. Hands loose at her sides. She didn't run. She didn't shout. She let Arlo see her with every step. The recognition hit him like shock. His chin lifted, posture shifting as if he'd just been given a second audience at the blue room door. "You," he said, satisfaction and greed mixed. "You came." "She didn't come alone," Aiden said in a fake polite tone. "You wanted her alone, right?" Aiden asked. Arlo's eyes flicked between Aiden and Jasper and Rafe, and landed back on Emma, as if a decision she hadn't made could be made for her. "Mr. Voss wants—" "Voss can go to hell for all I care," Emma interrupted. Rhea hesitated a breath, then moved. Arlo grabbed for her again. Rafe's hand closed on Arlo's wrist with a quiet. Arlo yelped and spun, knee coming up in a sloppy, angry swing. Jasper had already stepped into the arc, deflecting the kick. Aiden shifted a fraction to block Arlo's line of retreat. Rhea stumbled and caught herself against the dumpster with both hands, scared. "Easy," Rafe said to Arlo. "We can do this without you losing anything you need." "What I need is her to—" Arlo started, and stopped when Emma stepped into line of sight again. Something flickered through Arlo's face. He tried to yank his wrist again. Rafe held with a shift more than a squeeze, and Arlo gasped, obviously in pain. "Talk," Aiden said to Arlo, a quiet command. "You're in over your head. Your boss doesn't seem to be around to save you right now. You are replaceable. Hell, he'd probably forget your name in 2 days and replace you with that guy with a comma scar on his face." "Comma scar?" Arlo spit, pride brittle as glass. "Mercer?" "He's—" "Thank you," B breathed in everyone's ears at once. "Clive Mercer confirmed as Voss's man. He handles the women for Voss." Arlo's eyes flashed, too late to pull the word back. Arlo looked at Emma. "You think he won't kill you?" he asked, not quite bravado. "You think you are safe because you've got these guys? Let me tell you, what Voss wants, he gets." Aiden didn't respond. He didn't need to. He knew just how dangerous men like Voss were. "You can leave," Jasper told Rhea gently. "My colleague Bees is at the lounge's front entrance if you want to grab your stuff inside. We'll get you a ride. You don't have to come back here." Rhea hesitated. Then her jaw set. "All right." "B?" Jasper said. "Got it," B answered. "I'll cover her." Arlo twisted again, panic beginning to set in. "You can't take my girl," he said. "She's not your anything," Emma replied, allowing some of the anger in her to reflect in her response. Arlo lunged for her Rhea as she walked away. Not a smart move. Emma sidestepped him, pivoting into his space the way she taught her ladies, elbow up, wrist twist, hip turn, using his momentum against him and sending him into the wall with a thud that knocked the breath from his chest without breaking anything she didn't mean to. Rafe released his wrist at exactly the time Emma sent him flying into the wall. Arlo sagged and recovered, reaching for a concealed knife. In that second, a couple of things happened. Aiden stepped in front of him. Now, Arlo, why on earth would you be going about with dangerous weapons like that? You could hurt someone. Interestingly, I am in a good mood today, so all I want to know is, what does Voss want, Emma? I don't know, Arlo stammered. Oh, but I think you do, Aiden replied. I really don't, Arlo replied. I was just supposed to leave the notes for her. I swear that was all I did, and maybe scare her a little bit. I see, Aiden replied. So was that last bit part of the instruction too? Or you just like scaring innocent women? Look, I'm so sorry, man. I won't bother her again. Just let me go. I think you've broken my arm. You are lucky it was just an arm, Emma muttered. Arlo wheezed, swallowed, and for the first time he looked really scared. I didn't mean to. You meant to do exactly what you've been doing to me, Emma said. Rhea reappeared, bag slung crossbody, Bee at her shoulder with a smile. Ready to hit the road, guys? Bee asked. Rhea looked at Arlo. There was a complicated tangle of history there. This man had been her worst nightmare. Forcing her to do things she didn't want to do, the abuse, the harassment. She was glad to be rid of him forever. Ready? She said. Jasper walked her toward the car that would take her back to the estate with them, and then arranged to move her into one of their safe houses, a beautiful apartment on the outskirt of town. Aiden stepped closer to Arlo, gaze level. Clive Mercer, he said. Where and when? Can we find him when he's not at Blue Door? You talk, you walk tonight. You don't. We drop you where he can see you and let him decide how much of you he wants left. It wasn't a threat. Arlo licked his lips. The part of him that wanted to in the inner circle warred with the part of him that needed to escape this situation. He meets with some guys on Tuesdays, Arlo said, voice heavy. Warehouse on the harbor. Back office. Door with a claw scratched into the frame. His face crumpled for a second. He said it was for luck. Arlo rattled off the full address. He usually parks inside. There's a camera that doesn't record, only live. He likes to watch people wait. Independent confirmation? Jasper asked B. Got a utility bill ping at that address to Harbor Relief Initiative, a Voss shell, B said. Power usage spikes Tuesday nights. Cameras all around the property. Tomorrow, Aiden said, we cut off the head. Arlo's face twisted as he laughed. You think Voss is the head? He's nothing but the toe, man. He's the... He stopped himself again. They didn't cuff him. They didn't need to. They walked him to the end of the alley and warned that if he touched Rhea again, his next doctor would be a surgeon or a mortician. When the alley emptied, Emma realized her hands were shaking. The adrenaline had kept her going there for a while, but now she was drained. Aiden stepped closer, wanting to comfort her, but Emma spotted some blood on his shirt. Apparently, Arlo's knife had nicked him a bit. You're hurt. Let me take a look, Emma said. I'm fine, he repeated. I know, she said, smiling. Let me take a look anyway. He hesitated just long enough before he lifted his jacket. The white of his shirt had slight red stain and a tear where the knife had caught him. She pressed her fingers along his ribs to see if he had any other injuries. His breath hitched once, and then evened. No other injuries broken, she said. Just a small cut here. It would heal before you know it, he said. Silence settled between them. She felt a little less hostile to him. What was she doing with this guy? Why was he affecting her so much? No, she won't make the same mistake again. Not that he wanted her. She straightened, and he let his jacket fall close. He took her hands and led her back out to the street. She paused for a second. I need to know something, she said before she could talk herself out of it. If it had been me, if Arlo had gone for me, would you have made the same call? What call? His voice stayed even. To step in, she said. To take the hit. Yes, he said, looking her straight in the eye. And if I don't want you making those decisions for me? The words were out before she could take them back. She must be crazy. Here he was putting his life on the line for her, trying to figure out this whole stalking business, and here she was, asking him stupid questions. He paused, searching her face to try to figure out where this was going. He understood that he had messed up when he walked away. He understood that he hurt. He understood that she would want to distance herself away from him. But if she thought for 1 second that he would just walk away, if she was hurt or in danger, she needed her head examined. "Emma," he started, "look at me." She looked at him with an unsteady gaze, probably brought on by the guilt she was already feeling. "Don't even joke about that," he continued. "There are not that many requests I would refuse you, but this, I definitely would. It's not even up for debate." She searched his face for the lie and didn't find it. "You could get hurt," she managed to say, attempting to save herself from the earlier mess she'd made. "I'm well aware of that, and I'm perfectly fine with it," he said. And there he was. There was the man she had fallen in love all those years ago. The feelings came rushing back, and she was terrified by them all. Her throat went tight. She swallowed. "Okay," she said. He didn't look triumphant. Rather, he looked relieved that she wasn't insisting on it. "Back to the compound," Jasper said in their ears, saving them both from having to know what came next. "We debrief. We plan for our trip to the harbor. B, when we get back, could you please monitor traffic around that warehouse? Rafe, I want eyes on that block by sundown tomorrow." "Copy," Rafe said. "Copy," B echoed, already typing on her pad as she walked back to the car. Jenny looped an arm through Emma's like a hook and didn't try to hide the tremble in her own hand. "You're okay, Emma," Jenny said. "You're okay." "Yeah, I can't wait to get back home. This whole experience has been exhausting."
Chapter 6. When they got back home, Martha met them at the door with a bag of ice, which she pressed into Aiden's hand, even though he insisted he didn't need it. She'd worked with them long enough to know not to ask them questions about where they'd been or how they got injured. Jasper had called ahead to let her know Aiden would need the ice, and that's all she needed to know. Aiden pressed the bag to his ribs. No one won an argument with Martha. Rhea sat at the end of the kitchen table in one of Martha's sweaters, eyes still bright and hands still shaky. Theo put a mug in her hands to warm them up and stop the shakes. "Thank you," Rhea said to the room without looking up, "for helping me escape Arlo. I always wanted to leave him, but he said I owed him money." "You're not alone," Emma said, a thing that felt like a lie yesterday and a fact tonight. Bea pinned Mercer's schedule to the screen in the war room and made the lines between dots a map. Power spikes on Tuesdays at the harbor. A delivery truck stops for about 10 minutes, twice a week, outside of the other scheduled deliveries. "Mercer's careful," Bea said. "He thrives on routine." Voss has taught his men that routine is safety, but those routines are how we are going to find them all and bring them down. "Tonight we rest, tomorrow," Jasper said. "We pay a visit to the harbor." Emma felt the shift in the room as everyone turned to look at her. She looked at Aiden. "You don't have to come along tomorrow," Aiden said, quiet, to her alone. "I do," she said. "Maybe not inside. But I need to see what's going on. I need to face them head on. They've made me live in fear so long, I need to know why." He didn't argue. "Then we do it in a way that ensures your safety," he said. "That much is non-negotiable." The trust test hung in the air between them. Emma nodded, bone-tired and restless at once. "That's fine with me," she said. She stood up to leave the room, and Aiden proceeded to do same, but she caught him adjusting the ice bag on his ribs as he approached the door. The motion, betraying the pain he refused to acknowledge. Without thinking, she stepped close, took the ice, and placed it on his ribs. "Don't pretend you're not in pain around me," she said, voice low. "I won't," he said. "Good," she said, and left before she could make a mistake she wouldn't be able to get back from. In her suite, the eucalyptus had gone a little dry and sweet. She showered, washing the rotten stench of the alley off her skin. She changed into her nightwear, clipped the fob to top of her pajama bottoms. Her phone buzzed once. Jasper. Mercer equals Tuesday confirmed. Harbor 2200 hours. Awesome. Now she could find out exactly who was pulling the strings behind Operation Scare Emma into oblivion. A few minutes later, a text came in from Aiden. "Proud of what you did at the alley today." Emma stared at the words and let them land. a second buzz from him. Just in my room down the hall. Rafe is outside your door, down the hall. Shout if you need anything. Good night. Tomorrow, Mercer. Tomorrow, she could begin to examine these new feelings she was developing for Aiden Reed. Tonight, she was going to have a well-deserved rest. Chapter 7.
The harbor district was a lot less busy than they expected. Old brick warehouses hunched against the inlet, windows sealed shut in some of the warehouses. The sign stenciled on the door of the Harbor Relief Initiative had peeled off in the salt air, the word relief completely missing except for the R. From the far end of the block, Emma watched for movement in the building. Not much seemed to be going on, except for the hum of what seemed to be a cooling unit coming on. The stutter of a camera cycling a fraction too fast. Bee's voice threaded through her earpiece. No Wi-Fi broadcast in the area? Interesting. Roof? Jasper asked. Clean, Rafe answered from 3 stories up, pressed into the shadow with a glass cutter in his pocket. Side doors? Aiden asked from beside Emma. Theo's whisper came on the private channel the team used to communicate. 2. 1 chained, 1 broken lock. Back office marked with a claw on the doorframe. He sent a photo to the team. Jenny sat beside Emma in the van, fingers white around a thermos Marta had pressed into her hands before they left. Remind me why we don't just call the police and say, "Hi, we found your favorite crime lord?" Because someone inside may probably tip them off, Emma said. Bee's voice came through the earbud. 3 guys seem to be coming your way, Jasper. Aiden replied. Hold. We don't move until we have them in a position they can wiggle out of. Emma kept her eyes on the warehouse. The panic fob sat warm against her hip. Wind pushed the smell of diesel and salt through the cracked window. Somewhere a gull laughed. Emma shivered. The tension was tight. Aiden stepped out of the car, threw the collar of his coat up against the cold, and proceeded to walk towards Jasper. He wanted to take a closer look at the warehouse. The Band-Aid on his palm had been replaced. The nick close to his ribs hid under a plain black shirt. Emma debated her decision to check on his wound. She was checking on a friend, she thought. Not like she cared about him. She was just being nice to the guy who was currently outing his life on the line for her. No biggie. She watched Rafe move silently across the roof. Theo jumped over the barbed wire fence and vanished behind the warehouse. Aiden silently slid into shadow near the loading bay door to cover that exit. Jasper following closely behind. Emma grew even more anxious. The van smelled like coffee and leather and the kind of anxiety that tried very hard not to become panic. She needed some fresh air, but Aiden said to stay put. So she would. For now. Gold Dot, I see you. Bee murmured softly, the map reminder of Emma's location. Good job staying in the car. Don't get used to it, Emma muttered. Wouldn't dream of it, Bee said, which somehow made Emma laugh under her breath. Headlights rounded the far corner at 22:08, slow and unhurried. A plain dark SUV with plates that had been on 3 different cars in the last month pulled up to the bay. The engine cut. The driver's door opened, and Clive Mercer unfolded from the vehicle like a shadow wearing a coat. Average looking, if you didn't know what to look for. Average height, average build, average face that remembered not to hold expressions too long. The comma scar by his mouth flexed as he spoke to the passenger without smiling. Mercer in sight, Rafe said. A second figure got out, a woman in a fitted wool coat and heels that didn't belong on cracked asphalt. She moved like she knew where the cracks were. She laughed at something Mercer said and looked over her shoulder with a calm, confident expression. Emma saw the look for what it was, a mask. Companion is Anya Cade, Bee said, voice sharpening. She handles the fundraising for one of Voss's charities. She had cocktails with the mayor's staff last month. She thinks she's helping save women, or maybe she does know what's going on. Jenny swore. I hate it when evil cloak their activities in philanthropy. Mercer banged the roll-up door twice, short, long. Inside, a light blinked. The door rattled open. He and Anya slipped into the warm rectangle. The door lowered, and they both went in. Sound, Jasper murmured. Theo's beacons woke. A thin wash of audio filled the net. Muffled voices, papers, the whine of an old hard drive, chairs. Mercer saying, deliverable by Thursday. or the ports will lock us out. Anya. They promised permits. Mercer's voice, slightly raised. They promise everything when they want pictures. Emma's nails dug into her palm. The black vultures didn't just steal women, they sold them. Theo turned the dial up to get better feedback. Anya. And Voss? He said not to bring cash, he wants wire. Mercer. Voss wants what I say he wants. Good, B murmured. Ego confirms org chart. A new sound cut the channel. Tires. Another car took the corner too hot and braked sharp. A rust-eaten sedan with a muffler parked near the bay. 2 men in black jackets jumped out in a hurry. Runners, Rafe said. Not our boy Arlo. No, B said. I doubt that. They hauled a crate from the trunk between them. They banged on the bay twice, long, short. The door jerked halfway, stuck, then groaned all the way up. Hold, Jasper said. Aiden? I'm here, Aiden said, voice smooth as a drawn blade. The runners shoved the crate inside. One of them, buzz-cut hair, big watch, peeled back the lid a fraction. The beam of a flashlight glanced off silver. Not a gun, not pills, bracelets, a line of them, shiny, all identical. Tracking anklets? B questioned, immediate fury flattening her voice. They're upgrading. Jenny's hand found Emma's knee and squeezed so hard it hurt. Emma welcomed the hurt. Were they going to put that on her once they had her? She wondered. Mercer's voice came closer to the bay. Unmarked? He asked. Like you asked, the runner said. Leave, Mercer said. We'll talk tomorrow. We need... The runner started. Mercer's tone changed. A soft kill. I said leave. They left. Jasper, Aiden said, quiet, too even. Emma knew that tone he was trying to keep his rage under control. On my mark, Jasper said. Theo, kill the interior camera on Bay 1. B, eyes on the perimeter. Rafe, get me a picture of the office as soon as the door opens. Emma --. I know, Emma said. I stay. Aiden smiled. That was his girl. He loved her grit. The bay door opened. Light poured onto the wet concrete. Mercer stepped into it with Anya beside him. He wasn't careless. He had a hand in his pocket and a hand on the crate and eyes scanning the horizon for any danger. Now, Jasper said. The world compressed and then expanded. Aiden moved first, running out of the shadow's precision of a man who has practiced this dance one too many times. He shortened the distance between shadow and the light in 3 silent strides, one hand on his gun, the other making a move towards Mercer's face. Jasper was already there, catching Anya's elbow and twisting her arms behind her. Rafe dropped into the bay, silent as usual. Who the hell? Anya gasped. People who could keep you from going to prison, or maybe even put you in there, Jasper said. Mercer didn't panic. The hand that had been in his pocket came out with a small black device the size of a car key fob. He pressed it. Grenade? B asked, fingers flying. Yep, Theo said, swearing. About to pull the pin. A chorus of shouts went out at the same time. Drop it! Watch out! Don't do it! Emma's stomach turned over. Drop it! Aiden snapped. Mercer used the temporary distraction to reach for the bay's emergency chain. He yanked. The door began to close, but it was too slow. Rafe! Aiden shouted. Rafe slid to the chain and braced it with one arm, muscles stretched, buying time with his shoulder. Not ideal, he grunted. Aiden made a dash for Mercer, giving him a swift kick in the ribs as Jasper dove for the grenade in his palm. Thankfully, he had not taken out the pin yet. Step away, Aiden told Mercer, controlled as usual. Hands open. Arms out, Jasper added to Anya, softer. You're getting a ride home or to the police station, your pick. One way or the other, you will spend some time rethinking your donor list. Anya trembled. Her mascara held. Her voice did not. I didn't know, she said. Emma didn't believe her and loathed how easily men like Mercer recruited people to do their dirty deed for them. Mercer lifted his hands. Always a pleasure to meet a Reed, he said, tone mocking. Tell your boss we're past decorum, Aiden returned. He nudged the crate with his foot. Who wears these? You do or she will, Mercer said with sly smile. He flicked his eyes to Emma's van as if he could smell her there. Eventually, he added. Shut up, Jenny whispered, even though he couldn't hear her. Emma realized she had stopped breathing. Mercer's eyes slid to the office door and came back too fast. It seemed like he was about to make a dash for the office. He stepped once toward the crate, but Aiden caught on. Don't even think about it, Aiden said. Mercer smiled politely and kicked the crate towards the men, the bracelets scattering like coins. The noise bought him little time. He ran toward the side door Emma couldn't see, but had mapped from Theo's earlier drawing. Aiden, Jasper said. Warning, permission. Aiden chased after him. Rafe released the chain. The door thudded down hard enough to make the air jump and followed Aiden. Out, Jasper ordered. He half-picked, half-carried Anya toward the van. Theo took the crate with the anklets and followed Jasper to the awaiting van. Emma had promised to stay in the van. She stayed in the van exactly until she saw the dark shape of a man slide along the warehouse's north wall toward the water, and understood, with the cold clarity that had saved her life before, that Mercer wasn't running for the street. Left, she said into her earpiece. She was already opening the door. He's running for the dock. Emma, Aiden snapped, not a command, a reflex. I see him, she said, voice steady because if it wavered, she knew what he'd do. On your right, Rafe warned. Watch out for the dock cleats. Emma ran out of the car. Mercer was getting away. The dock groaned under the weight of their feet as they ran. Mercer glanced once over his shoulder and saw Emma, surprise barely registering on his. He did a quick assessment and adjusted his pace, intending to draw her farther from the street into the shadows. Stop, she shouted as she chased after him. He didn't stop. She closed distance. He pivoted, knife hand low, ready to slice. She stepped inside the arc and slammed her forearm against his wrist, pinning nerve to bone the way she taught. He ducked and came up hard, shoulder into her ribs. Pain shot through her ribs. She ignored it, spun under his grasp and elbowed his throat. He staggered back 2 steps, eyes watering, mouth working around a laugh. You learn fast, he said, voice a little ragged. I teach women to deal with men just like you, she said. Footsteps pounded the dock behind her, Aiden, and behind him Jenny swearing because she ran in mid-length heels. Rafe cut left along the pier head to flank. Mercer ran towards a skiff, hopped on and quickly cut the line with the knife he had intended to attack Emma with. Aiden chased after him, diving off the docks and onto the skiff. He landed with a grunt. The boat swung away from the dock, drawing a rope line tight across the planks. Emma lunged for the boat as well. Her boots hit the hull as it slewed. The world slightly went askew as the boat tidled. Cold spray slapped her face. Aiden's hand shot out, grabbing her by the back of her jacket. Mercer laughed for real then, a small sound. Lovers united, he said. How quaint. Mercer went for the outboard, yanking the cord. It coughed, sputtered, and shot off. Aiden grabbed a coil of line and flung it at Mercer's legs. Mercer hopped, caught the rope, slicing through it with his mean little knife, and drove the throttle hard. The boat arrowed toward the darker strip where the inlet met deeper water and the docks fell away. Kill the engine, Aiden said to Emma, voice calm in chaos. How? What do I do? Fuel line, he said. Left side, black rubber, rip it. She dove for it, fingers searching, found the line with her palm and yanked. Gasoline coughed up like spit. The engine screamed quitting notes and then died. The skiff immediately slowed down, just gliding lazily over the water. Mercer cursed, coming at Aiden low, knife in a grip that showed just how upset he was that Aiden had messed with his plans. Aiden met him with equal practiced efficiency that came from years of dealing with men like him. He went for Mercer's wrist. As Mercer overcommitted to the stabbing motion, he rolled, stripped the knife from him, and flung it hard into the dark water. Mercer hit him in the ribs on the follow. Aiden's breath broke. Emma's vision went white at the edges, her anger whispering in her heart. He's mine, you asshole. She stepped in, heel down on Mercer's instep, thumb to the tendon inside his elbow, a twist she could do in her sleep. He hissed. Aiden recovered fast. He wasn't going to watch his woman put herself in danger for him. Shit. Where had that thought come from? His hand found Mercer's collar, bunching it up tightly. The man choked. He could have thrown him into the water, but he didn't. He pivoted, dropped Mercer hard against the hull, and pinned him with a forearm across the chest. "Names," Aiden said, not loud. "Who are you and Voss working for?" Mercer smiled, bloody and polite. "We prefer to be called black vultures, Mr. Reed. We don't look up. We circle so, when you fall we won't have to reach high." "Clive," Emma said, and the use of his name made him look at her like she had undressed him. He didn't like the feeling. He made a move towards her, but Emma ducked and pivoted. At the same time, the boat slammed into something, another boat's rubber bumper, and through their bodies. Mercer used the chaos to roll, slipped out of Aiden's hold with a practiced twist, and flung himself into the water, but Aiden anticipated that move. He caught Mercer's sleeve. It ripped. Mercer hit the inlet with a slap and vanished under black. Aiden cursed. "Rafe!" he barked. "On him," Rafe said, already moving along the pier in another boat. A shadow surfaced 10 yards out. Aiden looked out to see him if he could spot him, but it was too dark. He turned to look at Emma. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes." She reached for his shirt and found some tear and more blood. "You're not," she added. "I've been worse," he said. "That's not comforting to know," she snapped, because the calm he wore like armor made her want to shake him until he admitted he wasn't made of steel. They rode the skiff's dead glide back on the line Rafe threw into the water. Jasper took one look at Aiden's ribs and said, "We need to get that cleaned and dressed." "I'm with you on that," Emma replied. Aiden remained silent, watching Emma. What the hell was she thinking, putting herself in danger on 2 different occasions tonight? Did she plan on giving him a heart attack? No way he was letting this slide. They were going to talk about this once they got back home. Back at the van, Bee's face filled the console screen, hair a haze and eyes fierce. "I found some sort of list," she said, holding up her tablet. "Names, amounts, a schedule labeled Shipment, Gray Harbor. There's something about phones, cash, bracelets, and containers. But there's a file with initials and dates. Not sure what it's about, but don't like that combination. Arlo gave us Mercer. Mercer gave us a hard drive." "I took it from the building when you were chasing Mercer," Jasper said, turning to Aiden. Emma led Aiden to sit on the van steps so she could clean the blood off his side with saline and dress it with the gauze pad Bee had left in a kit under the seat. The cut was shallow, but she had to make sure it was cleaned so infection didn't set in. Aiden looked at Emma, not sure whether to kiss her or wring her neck. Damn it, he wasn't going to wait for them to get home. He was doing this now. "I told you not to follow Emma. I specifically asked you to wait in the car," he said in a measured tone, halfway between worry, exasperation, and possibly something else. "Yes, you did," she said, pressing a sterile strip to his skin. But then plans changed. Clive Mercer was getting away. Now he was sure Emma wanted him to die from a heart attack. "Emma," he repeated, trying to remain calm, "do you think I would ever be comfortable putting you in harm's way, fighting my battles for me? What on earth possessed you to do that? It is my damn job to protect you, not the other way round." Emma tied off the last strip, her hands steady, even though her breath had quickened under his stare. "I don't need you to always protect me, Aiden," she whispered. "I need you to trust me. Trust that I am not as fragile as I look." "Trust you?" His laugh was sharp, strained. "Emma, do you have any idea what it does to me? Watching you run straight into the fire like you don't care if you come out the other side? You think I can just stand by and let that happen?" Her eyes lifted to his, softer now but unflinching. "And what would you have me do? Sit safely in the shadows while you bleed out in the streets if you get hurt? I can't." Aiden was frustrated. He turned to Jenny, who was watching the exchange. "Can you help me talk some sense into this woman?" "Oh no, big man. I'm staying out of this one," Jenny replied, raising her hands in surrender. Aiden's jaw tightened. He reached out, catching Emma's wrist before she could pull away, his grip firm but trembling with everything he wasn't saying. "That's just it. I can take the pain, the bruises, the goddamn blood, but I can't take the thought of losing you. Not tonight. Not ever." Emma froze, the air between them taut as wire. He released her slowly, letting the words hang heavy in the quiet hum of the van. His voice dropped low, raw with confession disguised as reprimand. You don't get it, do you? I don't throw myself in front of danger because it's my job, Emma. I do it because, if anything happened to you, I wouldn't know how to keep going. Emma's fingers stilled on the gauze, her pulse hammering against his grip. For a moment she just stared at him, searching his face for the lie, because it had to be one. Her voice came out sharper than she intended, raw with something she couldn't quite bury. Don't say things like that, Aiden. Don't. She shook her head, pulling her wrist free. You don't get to look at me like I'm the center of your damn universe after what you did. Aiden blinked, taken aback, but she pressed on before he could open his mouth. 5 years ago. Do you remember? 3 days after you told me you loved me, you just broke it off and disappeared. No fight, no warning, just gone. And you want me to believe now that I still matter? Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. You broke me, Aiden. You don't get to rewrite history just because you've decided you suddenly care again. Her eyes burned, but she refused to let the tears fall. She folded her arms tightly across her chest, as though holding herself together against the memory of it. So, forgive me if I don't believe for 1 second that you couldn't live without me. You already proved you could. Guys, Jasper cut in before they could both go any further. Can we take this discussion home? We have to hit the road now. Not sure if someone's alerted the police yet, but we need to clear the area now. Aiden turned to Emma. Thanks for the first aid. Jasper's right. We need to leave. She nodded and followed him to his car.
Chapter 8. Back at the Reeds' residence, Bea dumped the contents of the gray metal box she had retrieved from the warehouse onto the war room table. The box contained drives, embossed envelopes, and an old-fashioned ledger. Names, Bea said, tapping. Dates, amounts. Some are codes, some are initials. JT appears with 3 different dates and a phone icon. HRIB, Harbor Relief Initiative, Building B, has a weekly line item labeled containers. There's a list called nursery that I can't figure out, she said, addressing the room. Emma's skin crawled. Nursery? Could be code, Jenny said quickly. Could be something else. What I think is that we are exhausted, and a good night of sleep would help clear our heads so we can think a lot clearer tomorrow, Jasper said, already yawning. You're right, Jenny replied. That sumptuous bathtub of yours is calling out to me, and I am so ready to heed the call. Night love birds, she called out as she walked past Aiden and Emma. People began to file away from room then. Aiden tried to stand. Martha, who had just walked into the room, looked at him, and he sat down again, not willing to give the old lady one more thing to worry about. Emma took the chair across from him. The light from the kitchen light made his bruises look even worse. Aiden wasn't done shredding Emma. You followed me, Emma. I asked you not to, he said, not an accusation. I followed Mercer, she said. You were inconveniently between us. He breathed out a laugh he hadn't meant to laugh. It hurt him. He didn't apologize. You were right about his moves. You were right about the fuel line, she said. Silence fell between them. He looked at her, this stubborn woman whom he had never stopped loving. Emma wasn't comfortable sitting under his stare, so she stood. I'm going to wash your blood off my hands, she said as she moved towards the door. Emma, he said, stopping her with the ease of a name that had become a kind of rope. She turned. He weighed 1,000 words and picked a small, heavy one. Thank you. For what? Her voice tried to be easy and failed. The first aid, coming back safe. Being you. Everything, he said. His words hit that spot in her heart that she just wasn't ready to explore again. Get some sleep, she said, throat tight. You too. She left before she said something she'd regret. In the hall, Jenny's door stood open a crack. A lamp threw honey light on the books on the shelf. Emma wanted to go in. She needed help unpacking her feelings, but decided not to on second thought. That would be admitting she still had feelings for Aiden Reed. She walked past Jenny's room and into hers. In her room, she scrubbed the stickiness of the harbor off her skin, set the panic fob where it belonged, and lay down facing the door. The house hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a chair scraped quietly. She imagined Aiden taking position outside her door, but she knew Martha would chase him off to bed with chamomile tea and force him to put someone else outside her door. She smiled at the thought. Her phone buzzed once. Aiden, outside your door. I'm always here, Emma. I never left. The last thought on Emma's mind as she dozed off was, what did Aiden Reed want from her, and would she be willing to give it to him? Chapter 9. The kitchen was quiet the next morning, the air heavy with the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. Emma sat at the breakfast nook, her coffee cooling in her hands as her gaze rested on Aiden. He moved carefully as he reached for the sugar jar, deliberate in every motion as though he'd already measured the cost of breathing too deeply. The bruise beneath his ribs had darkened overnight, spreading in ugly shades of purple and black, a reminder of how close they'd come. He didn't bother with a shirt, probably because pulling one over his head hurt too much. Morning, Emma. His voice was quiet, even, betraying nothing of the pain she knew he felt. Sleep good? She hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line before she gave him the smallest of nods. Yes, I did. The silence that followed pressed down harder than before, like the two of them were circling the edges of a conversation neither wanted to start. She wanted to ask him what he planned to do today, if he'd even consider resting, but her words caught at the back of her throat. She wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Before the silence could strangle her, Jasper strode into the room with a steaming mug in his hand. Morning, kids, he announced with exaggerated cheer. Who's ready to face the day? Or am I drinking this whole pot myself? Emma shot him a pointed look. You're supposed to be making sure he doesn't overdo it. Jasper only shrugged, flashing a grin that didn't quite disguise the tension in his eyes. Yeah, good luck with that one. Coming? He asked Aiden as he strode out of the kitchen. Yeah, give me a minute, Aiden replied. Absolutely not, Emma replied, cutting him off. Look at you, Aiden. You've got a nasty bruise. I think you should sit this one out. I'm fine, Emma. Don't worry about me, he replied, giving her a huge smile. Emma's voice rose sharper than she intended. You're not going, Aiden. You can barely take a step without wincing. You need rest, not another fight. I do appreciate your help and all, but you shouldn't have to suffer this much for me. Aiden set his coffee down and stood, slow and deliberate. He crossed the space between them and leaned one hand on the back of her chair, forcing her to meet his eyes. Jenny walked in then, having heard Emma's voice. What's going on, guys? Is this part of the lovers' spat? She asked, as she nicked a grape from the bowl on the island. They both stared at her for a second and resumed their arguments, choosing to ignore Jenny. I've had worse, Aiden said evenly. A bruise isn't going to take me out of the fight. You know that. He just got me where I had a previous injury. Emma shook her head, frustration tightening her jaw. You're too damn stubborn for your own good. What happens if it gets worse out there? What if something happens to the guys and I'm not there? I am their team lead, you know, he cut in, voice low but unyielding. What if B needs cover, or Jasper walks into an ambush, or Rafe takes a bullet? You think I could sit here drinking coffee while the people I swore to protect are bleeding out at the docks? Her breath caught, but she forced her chin up. And what about me, Aiden? What if you don't come back this time? For a moment, the weight of her words settled heavy in the air. He let out a slow exhale, softer now. Then I expect you to hate me all over again. But at least you'll still be alive to do it. His eyes lingered on hers, steady and raw. That bruise doesn't change who I am or what I do. You want me safe? I get that. But safe isn't an option when there are lives on the line. Yours is on the line, and I'm not going to sit still while some vultures think of a new way to scoop you up when you least expect it. Emma opened her mouth to argue again, but he pressed a hand gently to her shoulder. I'm going, Emma. I know you'd rather I don't, but you do have to trust that I know what I'm doing. He straightened, grabbed his jacket from the counter with a wince he tried to hide, and turned toward Jasper. Let's roll. Fine, I'm coming too, Emma replied. Aiden wasn't the least bit surprised, and he really didn't have the heart to say no to her. He gave her a nod and walked out of the kitchen. Jasper shot Emma an apologetic glance before following him out. The door closed behind them as they all filed out of the house again, leaving Emma's untouched coffee on the table. Later, the team crowded into the van, the hum of equipment and the glow of Bee's monitors casting everyone in shades of blue and gray. She didn't look up as they entered, her fingers flying across the keys until columns of numbers appeared on the main screen. I've got something, Bee said, her voice taut with restrained energy. This isn't just donor data. It's a ledger. She tapped a key, zooming in on rows of initials, ages, and codes. The nursery. Each name matches to a shipment code. These aren't goods, they're people. Aiden frowned. This was a lot worse than he thought, but he needed to be absolutely sure. Let's head for the warehouse, he said, turning to Jasper. I think we might just find some of the missing pieces of this puzzle in there. The Harbor Relief Initiative building B looked more respectable in daylight. A pair of volunteers in matching t-shirts hauled boxes down a short ramp and reminded Emma of church basement bake sales. Except these boxes held LED candles and vacuum-sealed blankets instead of brownies. Inside, the warehouse ran cool. Rows of metal shelving, pallets, a small office cubicle framed by glass sat to one corner of the warehouse. Beyond it, a plain door with a gouge in the frame. A crescent talon mark you almost wouldn't notice, except you knew what you were looking for. A man in his 50s materialized from a side aisle with the gait of someone who'd spent a lifetime in the military. He had on khakis and a navy fleece vest, a fake-looking smile plastered on his face. Can I help you folks? City Compliance Inspector, B said, lifting a plain blazer and a laminated badge on a blue lanyard. That's Joseph, my security liaison, she said, pointing to Jasper. And the others are our environmental experts and my assistant, she said, motioning to Emma and the rest of the team. And you are? Mr. B asked. Berkeley, he said. Operations. Wonderful, B replied, shaking his hand. Inspection order from the City Compliance Department. She handed him the folder. He scanned it briefly, but B had done her job right. That document looked more original than the copy in the mayor's laptop. Berkeley's smile tightened. Of course, he managed. We are quite compliant here. Everything is in order, I assure you. That's what they all say, Mr. Berkeley, B replied, moving on before he could answer. Emma walked 2 paces behind her with a clipboard, pretending to take notes. The gouged doorframe with the claw mark called to her like a magnet. Jasper brushed past and set a small door wedge under the claw-marked door, very casual-like. Theo ambled by with a laser thermometer, pointing at the industrial vents as he went along, murmuring something about unsafe humidity levels. Rafe studied the pallet rack, trying to figure out what was in it without actually tearing it open. Your office, Mr. Berkeley? B said, turning toward the glass box. We'll start with the inventory logs. Berkeley rounded the desk, opening a drawer without his eyes leaving B's badge. Emma turned her back to the office glass, lifted her phone, and snapped a photo of the claw door's keypad as B continued to distract Berkeley. A few minutes later, Berkeley's loud voice could be heard from his office. B had asked him for the last 3 quarters' receipts. He'd given her only the current month's worth. B didn't flinch at his raised tone. All means all, Mr. Berkeley, she said pleasantly, and Aiden's voice slid soft in B's ear. Easy, Tiger. Let's try and keep him calm. 3 knocks, light and fast, were heard at the loading dock at the same time. Rafe's fingers barely shifted on the rack. Delivery, he murmured. Unexpected? Jasper asked. Not on their calendar, B whispered into her earpiece, tapping into the shared Google sheet the charity used for volunteers, which, yes, they were careless enough to make public. Keeping Berkeley's attention engaged, she turned to him. Open to the line involving auxiliary spaces, we need to look at the permits for those. He was livid, but didn't want to piss off a city inspector. Outside in the main warehouse, 2 men rolled a pallet in. This crew moved some level of choreographed efficiency. They had on safety vests, ball caps, no visible tells. Boxes stacked under shrink wrap, the labels printed, hygiene kits. A woman with a braid and a tablet scanned barcodes. Everything would have looked right to anyone who hadn't spent last night in a boat chasing a man wielding a knife who had run out from this very warehouse. Emma angled closer to the men. She lifted a box cutter like she meant to help and sliced the wrap. "Audit sample," she said cheerfully. She picked the top box, knelt, and opened it. Soap, toothbrushes, pads, wipes, a pair of socks rolled and tied. Emma took a second box. Same. Third. Same. She touched the corrugated seam of the fourth, eyes going narrower, and slid the blade. Inside, she found some sort of plastic jewelry case. Hundreds of them, actually. They were the size of an average wallet. She opened one up. A bracelet gleamed underneath it, a secret compartment. B was right. She closed the box and quickly walked away, heading towards Aiden. The moment Aiden spotted her, he knew something was wrong. He signaled to the team to wrap things up and to converge in the van. Later on, with the van parked on a secluded stretch of the road, about a 20-minute drive from the harbor, Emma told them what she'd found at the warehouse. There were thousands of those jewelry boxes, Aiden. I found something else, too, while I was in Berkeley's office, B added. Emma's stomach clenched as she waited for B to speak. I took a look at his supposed manifests, B continued. Those neat rows you saw on that sheet I held Emma were inventory lists. She paused, not needing to say more. Everyone in that room knew exactly what she was talking about. "They're moving girls," Emma whispered, unable to tear her eyes away. "Like cargo." She was going to puke. Aiden hadn't taken his eyes off Emma since she began speaking. The moment Emma's voice cracked, his body shifted closer, as if some unseen tether pulled him into her orbit. He didn't touch her. He knew better than to take that choice from her. But his presence pressed against her grief like a shield. His jaw was locked tight, but his gaze stayed steady on her, as though willing her to hold on, to anchor herself against the storm of what they had uncovered. Emma felt him there, steady and unyielding at her side, and though she couldn't bring herself to look at him, some part of her clung to the quiet certainty that he wouldn't let her face this alone. B affirmed Emma's thoughts. And the bracelets weren't just fundraising trinkets, Emma. Each one is hollow because it's perfect for hiding microchips or small doses of product. The charity sales are a front. They launder money and disguise distribution all in one stroke. Silence fell. Aiden leaned forward, his jaw tight, but before he could speak, Rhea, who had more or less been in the shadows, quiet and unassuming, blurted out from the corner of the van. "I remember," she said, her voice trembling. All eyes snapped toward her. "Mercer, he said something about a shipment that went wrong. He was furious. He said your name, Emma." Emma turned slowly, her breath stuttering. "My name?" Rhea nodded quickly, twisting her hands in her lap. "You were supposed to be part of it, but you escaped. That's why they're after you now. Your unfinished business." The words struck like a blade. Emma's chest ached, her pulse a roar in her ears. Across from her, Aiden's fists curled against his knees, his knuckles white. Jasper muttered a curse, low and vicious. When they returned to the Reed estate, Emma didn't wait for the others to settle. She cornered Aiden at the bottom of the stairs, the dim light catching on the bruise beneath his ribs. "Last night," she said, her voice sharp and trembling all at once. "Why would you say those things to me? Why now, after everything? With all the danger going on around them, she needed to trash this thing out with Aiden. She needed to know where they stood." Aiden didn't flinch. His eyes met hers, calm but unyielding. "Because you needed to hear them." Her laugh came out brittle, jagged. "Needed? You don't get to decide that. You don't get to walk back into my life and suddenly start confessing. Not after 5 years. Not after what you did." His jaw flexed, but his voice stayed low, rough. "I left because I had to. I was on an assignment and had to assume a different identity, Emma. I didn't know if the guys I would be going after would come for you. If I'd stayed, you'd probably have been dead. That's the truth. They would have hurt you, just to get to me. Emma's arms folded across her chest, her body a shield against him. No, that's not truth. That's an excuse. You made the choice for me. You didn't trust me enough to tell me. You just vanished. He leaned closer, his words raw, edged with a pain he couldn't hide. If keeping you alive meant you hating me, then I'll take the hate. Every damn ounce of it. Her breath caught, her heart stumbling against the sudden weight of his confession. For a fleeting moment, she saw the man she'd once loved, the man who had shattered her world without explanation. But the memory of that heartbreak rose fast and sharp, and she turned away before he could see the tears threatening her eyes. Shit, this was getting messy. She walked off to her room before he saw the tears coming out of her eyes.